G'day everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to start treating the rust in the frame of the bus. Now this bus thankfully doesn't have anywhere near as much rust as my first bus did, but there is still quite a bit, especially along the edges of the frame underneath the floor. Thankfully it's mostly just surface rust, so I don't expect there to be too many issues with cleaning it up. I'm just going to try first of all using some wire wheels on the end of my drill, mostly just because I don't like using the angle grinder unless I have to. And you know, the rust is so minor, I think I could probably just get away with pouring rust converter over it, to be honest, but I'm going to try and clean it up a little bit. So I'll use the wire wheels that I've got for my cordless drill and see how we go with that first. So the plan is to grind back all of the little surface patches of rust, and then I'm going to paint the whole frame with Penetrol. And then after that I'm going to get some rust guard paint onto it, and it should look pretty schmick. But anyway, the job for today is just to clean up as much of the rust as I can and see how we go with that. So this is what the rust looks like in the floor. It's mostly just surface rust. There's nothing that's affecting anything structurally, which is good, but there is quite a lot of it, so I want to try and clean up as much as I can. And I've also still got a fair bit of this black mastic sort of adhesive stuck to the frame from when the floor was ripped up, so I want to try and get that off as well. Okay, so I've done as much grinding as I'm going to do. It's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect for these buses. And I was actually finding that the more paint I took off, the more rust I found underneath. So in some places it looks worse. But anyway, I didn't want to take too much off this because it's really thin, this metal, and I didn't want to go all the way through, but I've got most of it off and it's looking pretty good compared to what it was. The good thing about Penetrol is that you can actually paint it straight over the top of rusty metal as well, and it'll penetrate the whole way through and seal it all off. So I'm not too worried about these few little bits here because I can just put the Penetrol straight over that, but most of it's ground off down to nice clean metal. So this is the stuff that I'm going to be using. It's called Penetrol. It's an oil-based product. The idea is that it has a very low surface tension, so when you paint it onto the surface of the metal, it kind of finds its way into every little nook and cranny and then forms a protective film coating over the metal. So basically it prevents any oxygen or water from getting in contact with the metal, which are obviously the two things that you need to create rust. So you can paint it onto metal that's already rusted and it'll just seal over the rust and prevent it from getting any worse, or you can paint it onto new metal as a preventative for rust. So I'm going to be painting this over the entire floor frame, and then once this is dry I'll paint the frame with a rust guard metal primer, and then probably a top coat of enamel to well and truly seal the frame and hopefully prevent any further rust in the future. Well, it's been a couple of days now since I painted the penetrol onto the frame. Initially, I just painted the top of the frame where I'd ground off the rusty bits, but the next day after that had dried, I actually went back and got the pressure washer onto some other parts of the frame, because the way the frame is built with the Toyota Coasters, there's a lot of holes and cavities where dirt can get stuck and sit there, and I just found that there was so much dirt still sitting within those cavities of the frame, and I wanted to try and get out, and the only way to really do that was to blast it out with the gurney. So I did that and got most of it out, and then waited another day for it to all thoroughly dry out again. And then I actually got some more penetrol and painted all the inside of the frame that I could access, and the sides and underneath. So hopefully I've got as much of the frame on all sides coated as I possibly can, at least the bits that I can reach anyway. So hopefully that will help. Now today, now that that penetrol is completely dried, I'm going to paint a coat of rust guard primer over the frame. I'm just going to use what I have here at home. So I've got this tin of the primer, which is red. And I've got this tin of the enamel top coat in the black, which I think will be fine. So, I mean, you're not going to see any of these parts of the frame that I'm painting today. It's all going to be underneath the floor. So I'm not really too worried about the colour. And I just want to use what I've got here rather than wasting it and buying a whole new tin that I don't really need. So the plan for today is to get the first coat of primer on. And it's quite an overcast sort of drizzly day today, and there's more rain forecast for the rest of the weekend, so it might take a while for this to dry, so I'll be happy if I just get one coat on today. So I've painted 2 full coats of the primer onto the frame, and they've had a couple of days to dry now. It's actually starting to look really good. Today I'm going to paint the top coat, and I'm not sure if I'll need 1 or 2 coats, but I'll get 1 coat on today and I'll see how that looks. Well, I'm happy to report that the floor is done, at least in terms of treating the rust and painting it. I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I'm actually glad that I took the time to do this, because there was a little bit of rust in the floor, and I'm confident now that I've treated that as best I can. And it means now that I shouldn't have any problems with rust in the floor for many, many years to come, hopefully. And so the next job is to put down the new plywood floor. I have to make a few decisions about what thickness I'm going to use and some other things before I do that. So a bit of thinking to do. But yeah, hopefully the next video will be me putting down the new floor. And if you're enjoying these videos, please show your support by subscribing to my channel so that you can stay up to date with all the future adventures.